What's up, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. I am here to talk about the John Byrne Fantastic Four Visionaries Volume 3. See, there's the number 3 right there on the corner of the book. I talked about Volume 2 a little while back, and I did not have nice things to say about that volume. My main complaint about Volume 2 was that it felt like John Byrne was just kind of treading old material with the Fantastic Four. I said that with the Fantastic Four, that should be a series that is going places where no other comic book has ever gone before. And I said that Volume 2 really just felt like he was doing the same old, same old. You have the Skrulls, you have Galactus, you have all this stuff that it really just felt like he was kind of retreading stories that had been done better in the 1960s. This volume really surprised me. The big reason for that is that finally, I get the feeling that John Byrne is actually going places and is doing new and interesting things that other writers hadn't done before. The main meat of this story is that the Fantastic Four are exploring the negative zone for 4 issues. I don't think that had ever been done before. I'm not a huge Fantastic Four guy. I haven't read a lot of stuff before John Byrne's run, but I'm pretty sure we never had a 4-issue storyline where the Fantastic Four are exploring the negative zone. That was a heck of a lot of fun for me. I read about half of this book in one night because I was so enthralled by that stuff in the negative zone. It was really good in my opinion. Now, some of it was a little bit Twilight Zone-y. So if you don't like those Twilight Zone-y kind of episodes where the Fantastic Four meets an alien species and at first they think that things are one way and then they find out that things are not as they seem, you probably won't like all of that stuff in the negative zone because that's a lot of what's going on there. But I really love the negative zone stuff. And then we get a very interesting crossover with the Avengers. We get 1 issue of Fantastic Four and 1 issue of the Avengers that kind of crosses those series over in a very interesting way. It's a way that, in my opinion, works very well. Most of the time, even back in the 1980s when this series was coming out, most of the time when you have a crossover, you have characters in one book meeting characters in another book, and most of the time, like 90% of the time, you have to go and read both parts of the crossover to really understand what's going on. You will get half of the story in one book, and then they say, go read Avengers issue 233 to find the other half of this story. That's not really what they did here. What they did here, while the Fantastic Four was exploring the negative zone, Annihilus, who is this bug creature with Doctor Doom type armor, he comes from the negative zone and he starts this force field thing from the Baxter building, the headquarters of the Fantastic Four, starts it and it starts expanding out and basically pushing all living people out of the force field so that there's nothing inside the force field except for Franklin Richards and Alicia Masters and Annihilus. So the Avengers, naturally, they are headquartered in New York City. They are coming to try and stop this force field thing and kind of figure out what's going on. And so in that issue of the Avengers, we're basically seeing their efforts from the outside of the force field. And then at the very end of that issue of Avengers, they finally get inside the Fantastic Four headquarters, and the Fantastic Four has already come back from the negative zone, and we find out there was a whole bunch of stuff going on inside the negative zone from within the perimeter while the Avengers were doing stuff outside of the force field. And then you go and read that issue of Fantastic Four, and basically while the Avengers are doing their thing, the Fantastic Four are over here doing a completely unrelated thing that still sort of ties in with what the Avengers are doing. It's a very neat idea for a crossover. In my opinion, they should do this sort of thing more often. This was a really neat way to get people who are maybe only reading the Fantastic Four to maybe go and check out the Avengers while not making it absolutely necessary that you go and read the Avengers to find out what's going on with this story, because you're still getting a complete story in the Fantastic Four storyline, and it's not saying, okay, at this point the other half of the story is going to happen in the Avengers and then you need to come back over here. It's not doing that, but it's still crossing over in what I think is a very clever way. And then at the very end of the book we get an issue of The Thing, who at this time was getting his own solo series. I've never read any of The Thing's solo stuff, but this was a pretty decent issue. I would argue that it maybe didn't have to be collected here. It has one scene where at first we're thinking that the Fantastic Four is going to disband, and then that scene kind of, the tail end of that scene gets collected in an issue of Fantastic Four that's collected here, and then we find out, no, the Fantastic Four are not disbanding. And then we get an annual that kind of picks up some threads from the Kree-Skrull War, which was an Avengers storyline in the 1970s. I'm not actually sure how many threads it picks up from that story, since I've never read the Kree-Skrull War. I know, I'm a terrible person. I want to read it, I just haven't yet. I'm not sure how many threads it picks up from that, but it definitely is referencing Fantastic Four issue 2, which is the first time that the Fantastic Four met the Skrulls and fought the Skrulls. And like I said, this feels like it does new and interesting stuff, whereas Volume 2 kind of felt like the same old, same old. Also, something that I did not miss with this book, this has almost none of the same old stuff that the Fantastic Four are always doing. In John Byrne's first 2 volumes, we get a whole lot of Johnny Storm kind of whining and complaining that he can't find a girlfriend, or he has a girlfriend and then she leaves to go be a Herald of Galactus. And we have a whole lot of Ben Grimm complaining and whining that he doesn't look like a human, and he's afraid that his girlfriend only loves him because he looks like a monster. And then you have a whole lot of Sue whining and complaining because Reed is analytical and doesn't pay enough attention to her and her son, etc. We get almost none of that in this volume, and that is amazing. I was so happy that we didn't really have a whole lot of the thing whining about, does Alicia Masters really love me? In fact, the only time that we ever get that is in the issue of The Thing that's collected here. And we don't get a whole lot of Johnny Storm whining about his bad luck in love. We do have him kind of sort of, I guess we get a wrinkle in his subplot of who's going to be his next girlfriend, because Frankie Ray's roommate, who Johnny is kind of falling for in this volume, and in Volume 2 when we first saw her, I was pretty sure that was going to happen. We find out that she doesn't really feel the same way about Johnny, and poor Johnny doesn't know that yet. But meanwhile, Juliet, or Julianne, I don't remember her name. Julie, I think is what they call her. Julie is Frankie's roommate. Her good friend, who is a fellow acting student, she kind of has a thing for Johnny. And so there's this weird love triangle thing where the people who have feelings for the other people, those feelings are not getting reciprocated, if that makes any sense. So I'm kind of interested to see where that goes, but I'm afraid that it's going to lead to another little bout of Johnny complaining about being unlucky in love once again. I really hope that we don't get that. And since this volume almost completely does away with all of that stuff that I really don't care for in the Fantastic Four, I'm reluctantly hopeful that Volume 4 is going to continue this trend and not bring back all that stuff that I really don't like. This review is kind of scattershot, but I really love this book. I really think that if you're a little hesitant about whether you should read John Byrne's Fantastic Four, this is going to sound really weird, but you should just start with Volume 3. Skip Volume 1 and 2, start with Volume 3, and then move forward. And if you like what you see, then go back and read Volumes 1 and 2. I really think that if John Byrne had started his run with stuff that was this good, I would have been a lot more excited about his run from the beginning. But it took him a long time to get to a point where the stuff was this good. Now, for all I know, this may be the high point of his series. I really don't know, because there's still like 5 more volumes of this run after this. I'm really hoping that the rest of the run is as good as this. I guess we'll find out. I'm really looking forward to reading the rest of this run. Up until now, I've just kind of been reluctantly looking forward, I guess you could say. Volume 2 didn't really make me very excited to read Volume 3, but now that I have read Volume 3, I'm super excited to read Volume 4. I really love this volume. If you're really hesitant to get into the Fantastic Four, I would suggest that you give the John Byrne Fantastic Four Visionaries Volume 3 a shot. It's really worth it. I had a lot of fun reading it, read a little bit over half of it in one night, and then I read the rest of it later. That very rarely happens to me. When a book is about 200 or so pages of comics from the 1980s, bear in mind that in the 1980s comics were a lot wordier than they are now, 200 pages of wordy comics from the 1980s, and I read half of it in one night, that means that I really loved it. So I think you guys would love it too if you have kind of the same tastes and feelings as I do regarding the Fantastic Four. So that's about all I have to say about this volume. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to get into Volume 4. I hope that you guys liked this review. If you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I will be back at some point later in the week with another kind of video. Until then, I hope that you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.